see yourself in that photograph? Lots of you I met last time, and it's really a pleasure to be back here again connecting with new friends. You're going to see my face a little bit throughout the day, updating us on some things we've done and talking about the community-based projects. What we wanted to do this morning was just to update people who weren't able to join us at the last CBI conference in the fall, to let you know what we were up to and what we accomplished. We had specific objectives for that particular workshop around the community-based initiatives, and these are those objectives. We wanted to connect our team members that were working on the CBIs. We wanted to share information about the case study, some of the goals and the methods and the progress and the challenges. And as George mentioned, we've been identifying the challenges as we go along and trying to respond to them. And they've also given rise to some meta theme or some broader based research that I'll be talking about this afternoon. We also wanted to take steps to facilitate some of the case studies that were not yet underway, to share our experiences, and to obtain some initial advice on some resources and strategies and questions. One of the very important things that's going to be coming out of this project, there are many important things coming out of this project, but one that we hope to generate is a guide to community-based cultural heritage. And Kelly and John will be leading you on in a workshop in relation to that later on. So we took our first look at that at the last workshop. And of course, to identify some questions and topics that were important for our participants who were there at the workshop itself. In the translation of this onto your overhead, you've lost some of my graphics, but that's okay. Can people hear me?
Just barely in the back.
Okay, I'm going to have to pull this out because he's lost some of the graphics there in the translation, so I just have to remind myself of what I was talking about. Here we go. In terms of the group discussions, we were facilitating, there was a lot of actually discussion among participants from the different community-based initiatives. And the idea was to give them a large control over the agenda so that we could concentrate on issues that were of concern to them. Three broad areas emerged out of these discussions. The first one had to do with communications and relationships. That's communications with each other and relationships with each other. Another had to do with the research concept and process and projects, and the other to do with youth and elders. So in the area of research, these were some of the themes that came up that people from the different community-based initiatives would like to see IPinCHers address on a broader level. And so this speaks to some of us who are here that are in the working groups today, but also to those of us who may be working as research associates and also within the community-based initiatives themselves. This whole concept of what is research and how do we understand it inside and outside of an academic environment. How can we change academic culture to understand what collaborative research really means, the expertise and the whole merit system? What are the fundamental values and principles that should inform collaborative research from a community perspective? How can we help new scholars meet these challenges? And we had a lot of discussion around new scholars and some of the potential fallout when projects go awry. And what role can IPinCH play in influencing ethical guidelines? In the area of data and products of research, some of the themes that came out of that workshop, and we've addressed a little bit of that, some of the technical, philosophical, and cultural challenges that are posed by the ethics process. I'll be getting into that a little bit more this afternoon. We need to define what we mean by ethical and what we mean by research in a collaborative context. We can't just assume that those terms have a fixed meaning, and particularly when we're working in intercultural and international contexts, they have different meanings within different contexts. The complexity of community authentication and representation. We have diverse groups, changing dynamics, changing authorities, changing risks depending upon the long term of the project, the term of the project, and ownership and control of data. So these were some of the themes that emerged that CBIs would like to see working groups and others address. In the area of communications, one of the things that we addressed and that we would like to get into today in some of our discussion groups are how can we best communicate with working groups and other disciplines with each other and the public. A point that came up at the last working group, and this is very important in the reporting of the final reporting of the community studies, again, which I'll get into this afternoon, is it really came out that we have to be very clear about whose voice we're representing, because there's a lot of diversity within both the academic community, indigenous communities, all communities, and so we need to be very clear when we're putting our information forward, whose voice is it, who is speaking. And that this needs to be raised in all of the reports and explained on our website when those reports are put up. We also talked about how the website was a wonderful resource, but that we perhaps weren't using it as much as we should be, and therefore we need to look at some other ways to communicate as well. On the side of relationships, and this really comes up in our examinations of ethics and processes and consenting practices and many, many areas, and I know Brian's group will be dealing with this and leading us through a workshop in that regard, this whole idea of parallel process. What do we mean by that? And what do we mean by respectful relationships? And how can IPinCH reflect that kind of parallel process? And what steps can we take to maintain and foster relationships into the future? In the area of elders and youth, this really came up a lot within the context of the community-based initiatives themselves, and the idea that we really have to engage elders and youth in our community-based work. And those who were engaged in community-based work would very much like to hear from people today and through their reports how they engage those youth and those elders. And I know Mara and Susan did a lot of work around that, and that's why I've got their picture up there. And there's others in this room here as well who engaged youth in many creative ways. And how can we use the research in a way that engages them? One thing we might think about, and this was raised at the last meeting, is do we actually need a specific working group of IPinCH that will focus on youth? And we don't have a working group in that area right now, and maybe we should develop some kind of a statement of good practice, and that might be something that could go into our guidebook, for example, around engagement. So what have we done in response to those things that came up at the CBI meeting? Well, we've done a number of different things. I haven't listed them all, but just to give you a sense that we have tried to respond to some of the concerns that arose, as well as share the themes here today with working group members, so you have a sense of what people are concerned with. One thing we did is get more involved in helping with the proposal development. Kelly Fox has done outstanding work in working us through some of the technicalities of the transfer agreements and the ethics process. But we also found that people needed to meet with members of the committee and help them actually develop the processes. So I met with Yukon and Avatak, and George met with some other groups, and some went up to Hokkaido, and so we're actually getting those things going now and helping them put together their actual proposals. Advice and strategies to deal with products and data. Many of you have talked to me about that particular issue, or someone else, and we found ways to structure our internal and external deliverables to keep certain information private within the community that needs to be kept within the community. There is research commencing by a variety of different people on the legal and ethical environment for research, including data and products of research. In response to the concern that not all of us have time to be checking into the website, or we forget because we're so busy, we've been sending out digests, so that in addition to the newsletters, we're now sending out digests that you've been receiving so that you can get more frequent updates. Kelly led an initiative along with other people involved in submitting to the review process, the Tri-Council review process, and a number of IPinCHers also responded individually to that process. Today you'll see we've developed some guidelines for the final reporting to help you with that. We are reformatting the Guide to Community-Based Research, and again, Kelly's going to get into that. Based on our last workshop, we saw that perhaps what we need is a more flexible online resource with multiple contributors or authors as opposed to a fixed publication. We are also rethinking and incorporating some of the survey questions that we went through with members of the community-based initiative groups. These are now going to be worked into the final reports and a project ethnography, and you will have a chance to meet our wonderful ethnographer Alexis later on. And so how is all of this relating to what we're doing today? Well, of course, we're sharing info again We're engaging, we want to pick up on some of those themes that came out of the workshop. And so on Monday, there is time, for example, for people to organize around elders and youth or some of those other topics that we want to get into further and seek advice from people who have been working in those areas. And of course, we will get into community guide to research. So that's the quick and dirty on what happened at the CBI in 2010. There are many people who are here today who were with us, and if I have missed something, I apologize, but I provide you with the opportunity now to throw in what you like, if there's anything else you think that we need to share. These slides are available for you on the conference website.